Well, let's start there. Let's start on the offensive line with those two players then, the first and the last picks of the draft. First round overall, number 18. And then Lee, of course, was the last pick for the Bengals in round 7. Everybody knew that Mims was like the one like freakish looking athlete, player with elite strength, 6'7", 340. But there are some people who believe, matter of fact, Ourlads even kind of put it as sort of like, it's either a home run or maybe a strikeout, complete, so it can go either way. This is swing for the fences kind of deal. He could be a tremendous player or he could be a bust. And the bust labels there only because of the limited experience. That's really it. And because once you have that limited experience tag, you've only had, 8 starts, I believe, in his college career. That's just not a lot. But the high side, the ceiling, looks really good. And if he's coached up and they feel like they've got the right guy, there's a lot to like there. And then, of course, you mentioned getting a center, which we had talked about the last couple of seasons. Would they want to upgrade Ted Karras at some point? Now, I know it's the 7th round, but you know what? A lot of times, really good centers are drafted in the 7th round.
Yeah, and of course, if you're looking for interior guys, you can find hits on day 3, but when you're talking about offensive tackles, like the very best, you can only find them really in the beginning of the draft, and I think that was exactly what the Bengals were thinking here. They knew that this tackle class was unlike a lot in recent memory, and with Mims specifically, we were talking about it leading up to the draft, and then Dan Pitcher, the offense coordinator, said himself, if Mims played like a full season this past year, he's probably not making it 18 picks into the draft because the tape that he put on display at Georgia was phenomenal. But like you said, it was just very limited. So the fact that there wasn't a large sample size with that high quality play definitely, bakes in a certain type of risk of, is this sustainable over the course of, a 10-year NFL career? The positives though are just extremely positive though. He's 21 years old, an elite athlete at his size. Greg, he's actually at 350 now. He measured at 340 at the combine, but they added on 10 pounds of muscle are already to his very immense frame, and the coaches apparently want him to play at around 350 pounds, and everyone knows that he can definitely carry that weight because he carried 340 like I've never seen a player who's 340 pounds move before. So all the measurables and the athleticism is there, and you need that to be a high-end elite offensive tackle. And the tape is quality too. Like, there's not a lot to pick at it with his pass protection. I think he's still a little bit raw in the run game, which is why I don't think they're expecting him to start right away. They have Trent Brown who can do that, at least for this year and however many games that he does play. But yeah, it was unfortunate that he got injured, but I don't think they're really concerned about any long-term risks there. There's a very clear reason as to why he got injured in the first place and why he suffered those setbacks. Typically with those tightrope ankle surgeries, it can lead to some re-aggravation and it can lead to a hamstring injury, which is exactly what happened over the course of the following months. But an elite tackle on tape that was only there because of his limited experience.
Yeah, his developmental time, and you mentioned Trent Brown, because I'm pretty sure when we spoke, as a matter of fact, I know when we spoke and we were previewing the offseason, there was a hole there. And that was a big need, the right tackle. We all knew that. So they went out, they got Trent Brown, and then drafted Mims. So is it just as simple as that? Brown's there for 1 year. Mims will definitely, as long as everything goes well, he'll be the 2025 right tackle. And is there anything else that Mims can do? Is he kind of stuck out there as a right tackle, and that's just going to be where he's going to play? Do they have any hopes that he could play any other positions if anything arises regarding injuries? What have you heard so far?
They didn't necessarily rule out moving into guard, but again, being 6'8" with that lane, you're just a tackle at that point, and
yeah.
They're not going to have any competition at the guard spots this year. Alex Kappa's there. He's a solid veteran. He's there for 2 more years. They've invested a lot of time and resources in developing Cordell Volson at left guard, so they didn't want to have any competition there either. Orlando Brown, the whole reason why he joined the Bengals is because he wanted to be a left tackle, and they gave him the opportunity to play that position for the next handful of years. So right tackle is where Mims obviously played at Georgia. Trent Brown is here for a year, but in his 9 seasons in the NFL, he's only completed 3 of them, whether it be from injuries or suspensions or whatever the case may have been with him in New England and Oakland at the time. So I don't think it's out of the question that Trent Brown goes down at some point this season, whether it be from a minor injury or whatnot. Mims comes in, he plays pretty well, and maybe he just takes over from there, and it's just like that's it. Trent Brown is your swing tackle backup for the rest of the year, which is a phenomenal situation for the Bengals, who never seem to have a fully healthy offensive line by the time the playoffs come around. So just having that depth, whether it will be Mims or Brown as your swing tackle, and I'm sure they're going to give Mims reps at left tackle as a backup just this year, just because the depth there is very critical. But yeah, it's going to be Trent Brown who's going to be penciled in as the week 1 starter, and if things change in training camp, things change, but that seems to be the plan for this year.
All right, and what do you think about, because now you said it, your grade went from C plus to B minus just by adding a 7th rounder. So what is it that you like, or more specifically, do the Bengals like about adding Matt Lee to the room?
So it's not the biggest revelation because, NFL teams don't grade 250 draftable players. So Matt Lee was graded as a 5th round player in the Bengals' eyes, which I guess is like the bottom in terms of like guys that they would consider drafting. And he was just there in the 7th round. But I honestly think that he could have been drafted earlier, considering what his profile was coming out of college. He was a 5-year quality starter at 2 programs, and a really elite athlete for the center position too. Like, we're not talking Jason Kelce necessarily, but a Corey Linsley type athlete. I think that's very comparable for the type of athlete and the type of physical player that Matt Lee is. I think people kind of coin him as that light body, maybe finesse zone blocker, but I think he gains a lot of power. I think he does a good job of displacing guys in the interior. So you're talking about a well-rounded center with high quality tape, high quality production. I think he only allowed like maybe 2 sacks in his entire career there, both at Miami and Central Florida. So there was just not a lot of knocks with him, aside from the fact that he was a bit small, right? He's 6'3". I think he's listed at like 290 on the Bengals website, but I think he measured in and weighed in a little bit more than that at the combine. We'll see what his actual playing weight is, but this year when Ted Karras at being, the last year of his contract, I think that is a perfect ramp for Matt Lee to develop behind him, learn as much as he can from one of the more experienced players on the Bengals roster, and have a chance to compete for that starting job in 2025, and bringing that quality of athlete that we know can play football. He was good in college, so there's reason to believe that he can be good in the NFL, but really quality in terms of athleticism. That's just something the Bengals have lacked severely, not even in recent memory, but just in the past like 10 years, when the offensive line was continuing to have trouble like just keeping their quarterbacks protected and healthy and whatnot. So to bring in 2 high quality athletes who I think can be starters in 2025, it definitely reshapes what that starting group looks like in the future. And I think that was so important this year, considering how this past year ended, when a lackluster offensive line in terms of athleticism unfortunately ended up resulting in another Joe Burrow injury.